Hello, and welcome back to Git Radio. It's been a while, but we're back, don't worry. I know a lot of people were talking about that we'd gone missing, but I am once again joined by my partner in crime, the Kanye to my Kim. It's Paul.
How's it going, guys? Hope everyone's good. Hope everyone had a good Christmas, good New Year. Getting into tournament season now. It's very exciting. There's some good 9th Age stuff coming out, talk about.
It's been really busy, Paul.
Yeah, it's been a lot of stuff going on. Events, new books, a lot of stuff to talk about.
Yeah, so a lot of people have been moaning that we haven't been on. I'm not going to name names, but Martin Bueno's one.
Our one fan.
And Tommy Tucker, of course.
To be honest, I don't even think they're qualifies fans. The two people that listen to the podcast.
No, they keep the download numbers up from 0. But I think fan is probably the next level. But we've had a lot of shit going on. It's been busy. Someone got married.
I got married. Oh yeah, you're talking about real life stuff.
I was going to say, ETC, that's not the direction I was going in.
I was sticking with the 9th Age stuff. Yeah, got married, that was good.
And then we've had like gaming stuff as well, so that's been busy.
Yeah. Yeah. But a lot of games in this month, actually. It's been good.
We have. We're playing a lot of games, which is good, because we're now in a position of authority, or as informed as we can be, about Gold Edition, which dropped over the Christmas break.
I definitely read that.
Yeah, I think I skimmed. There's been some tournaments and stuff, so we're kind of starting to get a feel about where the land lies for army books and stuff like that, which makes it an ideal time to talk about, well, what are we talking about tonight, Paul? So,
as you say, a lot of the books are starting to settle down with the Gold rule pack coming out. Warriors, obviously, being the first reworked book, so thought it was high time we actually sat and talk about that, especially now that the Demon Legion book's out, so better get this covered.
It's been a long time coming, to be fair.
It has, and we've been talking about it for a while, and part of me's kind of looked forward to talking about it, but also kind of dreaded talking about it.
What could possibly go wrong?
I've got very strong opinions about the Warrior book, so hopefully this is enjoyable.
Buckle in.
It will be enjoyable. I say that like people are like, oh fuck this, I'm just going to turn it off now.
Yeah, no.
It's going to be good. It'll be interesting. I think there's a lot of good stuff to cover in the Warriors book.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of talking points and a lot of things that can kind of be extrapolated onto kind of just the general game mechanics. So I'm hoping this will be an interesting one for people. And I'm going to try and play devil's advocate as much as possible.
Pointing out flaws in my argument.
So, how are we going to do this, Paul?
What we're going to do, obviously talking about the Warrior book, we're going to start just talking quite generally about the book. We're both going to talk about our top 5 pro points, things that we like about the book, and then we'll balance that out with our 5 most negative things that we find in the book, and then we'll wrap up talking about the book as a whole, what we think about it, maybe touch on some of the big talking points that people have had around the Warrior book. We'll talk about basically where the Warrior stands in the 16 armies. Obviously the Warrior book isn't nailed down yet. There's still a bit of work that's going on with the book, so that might also change depending on what happens there with the design of some stuff. So we'll talk about what we think might change, what we would like to see change in the book, and maybe just give a couple of general wish listing points for the book going forward.
Sounds good. So, I think it's only fair, since this is your baby, that you kick things off. So, we're going to start positive. We'll go through our top 5 good things that we like about the book. We'll transition onto the bad things, and we'll take it from there. So, Paul, what is your number 1 good thing about the Warrior book?
I think 2.0 originally came out, the Warrior book, last January, so January 2018. And that was the original 2.0 release. And since then, there's been a few big tweaks to the book. And I think the last iteration that was released, there were a couple of redesigns for certain units, and I think that's made a big difference. So for me, one of the top 5 things has been the improved design on some things. So for instance, the Battle Shrine.
Okay.
Back in 1.3, the Battle Shrine was pretty damn good. You had the hard target aura, you had the different marks that you could take on the shrine.
Yeah.
They had bound spells. So it was a really good utility piece in the book, helped to offset a lot of the weaknesses that Army had in terms of dealing with shooting. And then in 2.0, it went through this massive change where it had this really weird, clunky mechanic around magic, generating soul tokens. I don't know if you remember soul tokens. They were a thing in the book for a while.
They were a thing, weren't they?
They were a thing. And then they decided that it was too complicated. No one was using this. It was more expensive. It just seemed non-functional. So then they went back to the drawing board. And the last iteration with the Battle Shrine has actually been really cool. So now you can use the shrine as a war platform with the sorcerer.
Which is very cool.
Which is very cool. It's very fluffy. And they've basically just stuck all these like additional rules onto it. So you can get like, it can take banners now. If you take it as a mount for a wizard master, you can get extra spells that you wouldn't normally get access to, which is good. One of the supposed strengths of the book from the army strengths and weaknesses was always supposed to be large damaging spells. So now you get like access to Hellfire, and you get access to the Grave Calls, or you get access to Wrath of God on the shrine. You basically have to choose one of those spells. So it's a nice complement. So you can basically work it where you can stack 3 of those spells on one sorcerer. If you go occultism and you take the heirloom and you select Wrath of God, you basically can get all 3 of those on that one guy, which is pretty nice.
Tasty.
So that's a pretty good improvement, I think.
So more astute listeners might have realised the venom in that statement. Supposed strength. Supposed strength,
yeah. So, but like, we'll maybe touch on that in the cons.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. We'll keep that.
I won't get sidetracked. So that's definitely a positive. That's gone some way to help weakness in the book, because obviously we don't have a shooting contingent really.
Yeah.
So being able to rely on magic for clearing chaff and stuff is really good. I really like the war dice mount as well for the Chosen Lord.
So this is basically the shield bearers, but for warriors.
Yeah, which is really cool. I think it's really like fluffy. It gives basically 2+ to your armor save. It gives you an additional wound, and it gives you an additional discipline. The discipline on the characters in the book has been a sore point of contention because everything's basically 8 unless you go Ancestor or Herald.
Yeah.
And in the past, the Ancestor, you couldn't share his discipline with Hellforged armor units. So you could have 9, but it wouldn't really make a difference to the army.
That was a thing as well, wasn't it?
That was the thing as well. So
yeah.
they've taken that away, which is good. So the war dice it's really nice because you basically pop your guy on there, and with plate armor and a shield, you're at a 1-up armor save, 4 wounds. And a Chosen Lord's res 5.
Yeah.
So if you bring Sloth, you've now got a res 6 guy that you can either get to a 1-up, 4-up, or a 1-up rerollable res 6.
That is that's some tasty sauce right there.
It's pretty tanky. I mean, it works out about 750 points, but you can basically get a BSB at a 1-up, 4-up, res 6, 4 wounds, strength 7, rerolling to wound with divine attacks for that amount, which is very, very good. It's just the downfall becomes mobility because you're still movement 5.
Yeah.
But it's a solid build. So I think the war dice is actually a really cool part of the book. I really like it. And the other thing that stands out is the change to the Warhound rule. So Warhounds are kind of like the de facto chaff in the book. And we had the Release the Hounds rule that was part of the original 2.0 release. And for you of you that don't know, the Release the Hounds basically allows you to perform a 24-inch march. In the original iteration, it was first turn. So if you wanted to hold back your chaff and not basically dedicate it turn 1, you would lose the function of that rule, which kind of sucked.
Yeah.
So you're kind of obligated to use it. Whereas now it's basically changed the wording to it, or once during the game.
Yeah.
But you're not limited to the first turn. So you can hold them back, you can hide them, and if you want, you can then, chaff turn 2 and 3 later game if that's a better way to go. So that's a really small tweak, but it's just made a massive difference. And I think chaff is something that the book struggles with. So that's helped a lot, I think.
Yeah, they've also added the Devastating Charge, right? Because that wasn't always there for the Warhounds.
So that was always there, but again...
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, so again it was, you have to choose, and it had to be first turn.
Ah, right, it was part of the...
Yeah,
right,
so
okay.
Because they don't vanguard, like if you were going first, chances are you wouldn't be getting a charge anyway.
Yeah.
Because there'd be nothing to charge. So you were really bringing them for the Release the Hounds rule as opposed to the Devastating Charge rule.
Yeah.
Whereas the Devastating Charge element is even better now because they're still movement 8. So you can be pushing them up. And then if something presents itself, you can say, okay, turn 2, Devastating Charge. They're getting a charge, whatever. So they'll go up to 2 attacks at strength 4, agility 5 on the charge.
Yeah.
Against small chaff units, that's actually pretty decent. Because if you run them 8 wide, you'll probably get most of them in against 5-man light cav type units.
Yep.
They've got a use. So I think some of the tweaks to some of the units, I think they've definitely improved. So I think that's definitely been an improvement on the book.
Okay. Well, you've triggered one of my positives as well, because I actually gave the Warhounds a slot of their own in my top 5. I think these are very good for what they are. I mean, the issue is that, like you say, you're relying on the Warhounds as basically your only form of chaff. You might get away with a single wretched one as a piece of chaff or a chaff clearance, but really your Warhounds are, who are going to have to do the heavy lifting in that department. And I think that's why, Bristol is this weekend. We're recording on the 7th of Feb. So Bristol's this coming weekend, and there's 9 warrior lists, and I don't think any of them have any less than 2 units of hounds. I think one has 4. They're so important for the army, and it's good that a unit that's so important is actually quite decent. I think the release the hounds rule, for the plus march it's amazing. For the devastating charge, that's awesome as well, because they're not light troops. So if you've got even a 10-man unit, I don't know why you'd run a 10-man unit, but that unit breaks steadfast if it gets in and you don't suffer any casualties, which is a big if, admittedly. But, they're pumping out a decent amount of attacks as well. So, like you say, enemy chaff, enemy light cav, even just fire them into the flank of an ongoing combat. Most of your stuff's tanky enough that you don't really mind giving away a couple wounds res, but they're pumping out all those extra strength 4 attacks. So, I like these guys a lot. I think they're very good.
Yeah, they're good. You do need to babysit them. They're discipline 5.
Yeah.
So things like, you can't really chaff monsters with them, because as soon as you commit them,
they're out terrored.
They'll get terror checked. And then you can get into the unfortunate situation of chaffing yourself with your own hounds as they're running away.
Yeah.
Their discipline's always been pretty poor. In 1.3 they had a 5-up armor save in poison, and they could vanguard. So I think
yes, yeah.
The release the hounds rule, I would say, is as good, if not slightly better than Vanguard. That makes up for that change, for sure. They are a little bit more squishy now than they used to be.
Yeah.
Your only other alternative for chaff in the book is really Fallen.
Yep, Fallen
which are good. They're light troops, they're res 4, they've got a 4-up armor save, and they're pumping out, a minimum size unit's pumping out 15 attacks, offensive skill 5. So they're good anti-chaff clearers, and they're annoying in that they're fearless. You've got to wipe out the unit.
Yeah.
So, we've had games when you've had writers, having to continually shoot them.
Yeah.
And one guy will survive, and that one guy is just as good as the 5 or chaff. So
arguably
they're
better.
good. They're not a bad unit. They're not expensive. They're only 160 points, but they serve a different role in the book. Warhounds are your chaff, really.
Yeah.
For pushing up. Leading on from that, I really like what they've done with Feldrax.
Okay. As in just the Feldrak unit, or the characters as well?
Just so the whole kind of trilogy, if you will, of Feldrax. I like the fluff surrounding the Feldrax. I like how they've encompassed some of that into their special rules. So again, in the last iteration, they were given a new special rule, Unburnt.
Yep.
Which basically forces flaming attacks against them to be successful. To wound rolls have to be re-rolled against them. Alchemies against warriors can be brutal, and these guys really compete with Chosen Knights in the book. So if you're worried about going into alchemy magic, the Feldric units are a nice alternative to the Chosen Knights, because they do a kind of similar thing, but they're that little bit more resistant to those kind of matchups.
Okay.
And they're, being res 5, 4 wounds, they've still got a 4-up armor save. So some of the spells aren't as good against them, that are rolling against, the armor. So I really like them generally. They're really tanky, they're fast, they're beasts, so they don't suffer a lot of the negatives that Cav suffer. I really like them. I think they're very good.
I guess their big issue is their discipline, though, right?
The Feldrax and the Feldric Elder are still discipline 8.
But they're not fearless.
Ancestor is 9, but they're not fearless. The one advantage they've got is the fact that most of the other things in the book are fearless. So the only things that are going to panic them, barbarians, because dogs are insignificant.
Yeah.
So if you were running a unit, you probably want to take a banner of discipline on a block of the Feldrax. So that's another addition that they couldn't do before. They couldn't bring magical banners, and they can now.
Okay.
So the units, you stick a banner on them for 35 points, and you can stick them out on a flank, and they should be fairly resilient.
Yep, that's a good point.
I mean, if you're taking like a unit of 6, you've got to do a fair number of wounds against a pretty tanky unit before you even take a check in the first place.
Yeah, for sure.
They should be pretty reliable, and being strength 5 base, paired weapons are still a very solid choice. Or, bring halberds and great weapons as well if you want them for like monster hunting.
Good utility, kind of anti-infantry or anti-bigger stuff.
Yeah, they have hatred against fly, so a lot of solo monsters flying around don't want to be fighting against Feldrax.
No.
Which is pretty tasty, like if you've got something that's like strength 7 with hatred.
Yep.
I think they're really cool. I think there's a problem in the book, I think, that isn't an issue with Feldrax per se, but it's something that affects them that I'll touch on later. But as a design, I think they're really good.
Okay.
So I'd say they were one of my top 5.
Okay, so that's your 2 so far.
Yeah.
So who's number 3?
So obviously Feldrax were kind of based on what came before in the old game. One of the new things to 9th Age are the irredeemable units.
Yep.
So the Wretched Ones and the Forsaken One, I think, are really cool. The random movement mechanic on the units is amazingly useful, especially for an army that's so reliant on close combat. Like having that element to movement gives you a lot of options. So like having like fallen ones on a flank to protect yourself from fast movers that are going to try and get round you, catching people out with like fleeing units and being able to pick up points that way. Their ability to grind because they're unbreakable, which is amazing, and being able to perform like grind attacks in ranks like the Wretched Ones do.
Yeah.
And striking regardless of whether you die or not is amazing. So using like even against like really scary stuff that should like take out the Forsaken One, having that D6+3 auto hit at strength 6 is like, well, you might kill me, but I should do a fair chunk of wounds back. And then that just makes it so much more manageable for taking out with magic or something else. So I think just because they're original to the book, and they're also very useful to the army. And I think they catch people out a little bit. Like, I think the Wretched Ones, I think when you play against people and they haven't fought against them, like you tell them their stats, they kind of ask you the wrong questions. They're kind of like, what's their defensive skill? And you're like, 2. And they're like, what's their agility? 1. And they're like, oh, so they're shit. So they'll put something into them and you think, right, okay, I strike back now. And they're like, wait, you're dead. You're like, no, but I still strike. And you roll your D6+1 grinds per model.
Eat a unit.
And you're like, okay, so that's 38 auto hits at strength 4. And they're like, what?
You put out your hands to collect their tears as they drop from their face.
So, and I think they offer a really good counter to a lot of stuff that scares a lot of the other close combat stuff. So things like feral orcs, which are fucking horrible in combat, or like elite elves.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Because you can just pop these guys in, and even if they do get wiped, you should be doing a massive amount of wounds back.
Yeah.
And if you just sprinkle a little bit of magic on these guys, like reroll 2 wounds.
Sprinkle a little bit of magic on them.
Yeah. A little bit of, they just become...
A little bit of salt.
Even better. They're really good. I mean, the one downfall I've got is lack of AP.
Yeah.
So Wretched Ones are AP 0, and the Forsaken One, for all that he's strength 6, he's only AP 2.
Yeah.
So against quite high armored targets, they're not great. Even things that have got like a 5-up save, it just takes one decent roll and the amount of damage output just isn't there.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're pairing up against the right thing, I think they do really well. So I really like them. I think as well that the last couple of iterations have had some price drops on them, which has just made them way more bringable. Like the Forsaken Ones now, I think he's just about in every list you see in the event.
So cheap for what he is.
So bring in like, I mean, I've got one in my list for Bristol, but the lists I've been writing recently, I've got 2.
Yeah. 390 points is a steal for what he does.
Yeah, it's good. So 2 of those, a block of 6 Wretched Ones, and then if you bring the Lord of the Damned item on a character.
For your rerolls, yeah.
Yeah, it's actually like a 36-inch bubble. It's amazing for the reroll.
Yeah, these guys made my top 5 as well. I just wrote irredeemable units because they're both so good. I think you could make a very convincing argument that the Wretched One unit is the best unit in the Warrior book. Just because, and this is a spoiler for what's to come, they are so cost effective for what they are. These guys absolutely blend infantry. As long as you've not got like heavy armoured stuff, they just absolutely wreck face. Like I've got, heavy infantry or skeletons and, VC shit infantry, or, like you were saying, elves. Basically anything that can't hide behind a save is absolutely fucked, because these guys just pump out so many attacks, and they're all strength 4. You're gonna fail, and you're gonna suffer casualties, and you know what? See, even if you stick around, they're not going anywhere either. They just hit you again next turn. Yeah. They're just absolutely mental. I think they are so good. The only thing that sucks about them is that you can only take 2 units. Because these guys they are so good.
The one part of the irredeemable rule that I don't like, and I won't say any more than this just now because this will come into a general point of the book, is they can't stomp.
Right, okay.
So your Forsaken 1 monster that's 400 points, very good against single models, very good against single models.
Yeah.
But because you're not getting that stomp, you can't really rely on them going into units. I mean, he'll hold the unit up. I mean, if it's a shit strength 3 unit, he's fine, he's safe, it's not a problem. But he's not like another monster that you can be putting into them and be actually doing a lot of wounds.
At least he's unbreakable.
Well, this is it. So, you can totally do that with him.
Yeah.
But it's not like putting a mammoth or something into, a block and be like, right now I get to stomp you for D6. Do you know? You miss out on that standard rule that applies to every gigantic model. That's taken away.
Yeah.
For the wretched ones, the stomps don't care. It's 3 stomps. You're not missing 3 stomps. They pump out so much damage that who gives a shit. For the Forsaken one, it would be nice if he could stomp. Even if it was like a D3 or something like that. Something.
So this is where I get to play devil's advocate for the first time. For wretched ones, I agree. It's not a big deal for them because they just pump out so much anyway. Yeah. For the Forsaken one, I totally get that it's annoying because he's a monster and all other monsters get to stomp, but he doesn't. But he's unbreakable. And so many monsters rely on the stomp just to stick around in combat. Because if you have something like a Stegodon that gets into a combat and the Steg whiffs, the skinks are doing fuck all because they're skinks. You're relying on rolling a decent amount for your stomp just to churn out a little bit more res to keep you in the game. So I think because you're unbreakable, you don't need the stomp the way that other monsters do. I totally agree that it's a weird choice not to include it because all other monsters get it. It just it does feel weird.
It's the justification. So apparently it's because they're supposed to be kind of like flailing beasts. They're not focused enough that they're trying to there's not that element of conscious thought there. Basically,
right.
I'm going to stand on you, squash you. It's like they're just in there flailing around causing damage. But in my mind, if you're gigantic and you're in there causing damage, you're going to be standing on little people. So to me, the stomp is just, because you're big fighting small stuff, you probably stand on them. I mean, that's a nitpick.
Yeah.
That's not a massive gripe with the book. If it never comes in, I'm not going to lose any sleep. It's just something that I'll touch on later. But as a whole, I think they're really good. I really like them. This isn't a top 5, but this is an extra thing. I think one of the pluses that the book has going for it is the amount of models that you can use. Irredeemable units, especially, I think, offer really cool modeling opportunities for the book. So there's a lot of really cool models out there for Forsaken ones that I've seen people do, really nice conversions, and a lot of new companies are bringing out stuff that is perfect.
We should have said at the start, actually, that this is really our view of the book itself, not of the fluff or the modelling stuff, because I think Warriors is one of the better books for modelling opportunities.
Yeah, I'd arguably say it's the best.
Yeah, we're being full gamey tonight. We're focusing on the book itself.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, Irredeemable, that's obviously a big winner because it's on both of our lists. So what's your number 4?
One of the things that's been in the book since the initial 2.0 release, which has been one of the best things, is the manifestation mechanic around the Exalted Herald.
Okay, that's interesting.
The ability to choose his spells and buffs prior to the game makes that a really sound choice, I think, for tournaments. Yep. Because you can just hard counter whatever it is that you're up against that round. And there are enough choices that you get to make him fairly flexible. So just as a design point of view, I think that is something that's really cool in the book. And I think initially when the book came out, everyone was running heralds, even double herald lists.
Yeah.
were really common. I mean, I don't think you were restricted with selecting the same manifestation on both models. So you could do like really nice combinations, or you could just do like total bullshit moves where you take like the hard target upgrade on both and stick them together in a unit because hard target stacks.
Ah, you scumbags, you know who you are.
So you just be pushing around this thing and be like, -2, please. So no, I think that is something that's really cool. I'd like to see more of that in the book, especially given the kind of like chaotic nature of the warriors and how they kind of blend between like the mortal and immortal kind of realms and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think that's really something that's really cool.
Yeah, it just adds flavour, doesn't it? It's a nice kind of flavourful option that you can really customise your stuff.
The last thing, again, is a general design point about the book that I like, is there's very definite paths, and there's a kind of structure to a lot of the units.
Okay.
So you've got Path of the Favoured, Path of Exiled, and Irredeemable. So you've got this really nice structure that translates really well from the fluff into the rules that affect the various different units.
Okay.
And you have various units which belong to each of those kind of categories. So I think that's something that's really cool. I mean, you can run mixed lists, you can run like specific lists if you want. If you want to run like an irredeemable heavy list or an exiled heavy list, you can do it. And then again, that feeds really nicely into the different kind of modelling opportunities you've got with the army. Like, I'm desperately trying to move on to ogres, but I keep coming up with ideas. Like, I love that model range because I want to do a total mutated, exiled / irredeemable like mutant army. I think that's something that's really cool, and it's really original, and it feeds really nicely into the Dark Gods, like the new pantheon of the deadly sins that they've got in the book. So I like that element of fluff. I think that's really cool.
Cool. So just to recap, so your top 5 good were some of the unit redesigns.
Yeah.
Feldrax.
Yeah.
Irredeemable units. The manifestation system on the Exalted Herald, and the different paths and how they are reflected in your unit choices.
Yep.
Okay, welcome to Gamey Corner. I'm going to talk you through some of my choices. So, 2 of mine have already been mentioned. So I also said the irredeemable stuff because they are fucking insanely good. I said dogs because they are cost effective and good. They're actually maybe still slightly too expensive, I would say, because they've lost Vanguard. They seem to have lost quite a lot and stayed about the same price. And I don't think they were particularly, overachieving in the bracket beforehand. So, but I think overall they're still a solid unit. I would still absolutely take at least 2 units, probably 3 because I love chaff. Number 3 for me was the Chimera.
Okay, this is interesting.
So I cannot understand why no one is taking one Chimera in every single warrior list ever written.
There have been lists that have had multiple Chimeras in them.
Because for 220 points, that's right folks, 220 points, you get a large beast that moves 20 inches, is res 5, with a 4-up armor save, has 5 strength 5 attacks, and is at agility 4. This is a perfect War Machine Hunter, or Bunker Hunter, or basically I'm going to run this thing round you turn 1. You can turn around and try and kill it with stuff, but I bet you whatever you throw at it is going to be more than 220 points, and the rest of my army is pushing up in your face. I think this unit is insanely good for what it is, but I don't see a lot of them on the table, and I don't know why.
You don't see a lot of them, no. Talk to people about books, like you can always kind of identify things that you think are really good that you don't have in your book. You're like, why does no one use this? And I think in the case of the Chimera, it falls into the category of, I think people don't take it mainly because of how it's changed. So looking at it on paper, on its own, that's the same price as a Chariot.
Yeah.
It does very different things, but it's, as you say, it's still res 5 with 4 wounds with a good armor save. It's came down in price since where it used to be, but it used to have a 4-up regen save, it used to have lethal strike, and it used to have, I want to say, more attacks. Okay. And all that was taken away. And they made it more basic and cheaper. So they've compensated it with cost. But I don't know, for some people, if they're just looking at it now and it's almost lost too much, they can't get over the fact that it used to be so much better.
Okay. I guess that's fair.
And I guess, like most things in the book, like our opinions are shaped by what we see in the meta. and what we come up against.
Yeah.
And there's one guy in the forum that's particularly passionate about Chimera, and I know he's ran lists that have got like 3 in them.
Okay.
Because he loves them. And he always moans that he loses them super early. I think he's got a lot of cannons and things, a lot of shooting in his meta.
Yeah.
And he finds that they do get picked off. Town and Presence doesn't help if you're coming up against things like with cannons. And if you're paying for the wings upgrade, again, that's not good against those kind of units. I agree with you.
Okay.
It's a good option.
Yeah.
But personally, I would rather have a chariot for the same price.
There's some units in the game, like just talking generally about the game, which I would bracket as like the scumbag units that are basically so cost effective in their role, and you throw them out, and they either do their job or they distract more than their points, and they do a job that's beneficial to you anyway. I think these guys are in the same kind of category as stuff like Varkalax, the skink captains on the Pterodons, marshals on griffins, anything on a griffin essentially.
Do you think these are as good as a Varkalak?
No, but a Varkalak's over 100 points more expensive. I think, yeah, a Varkalak would kick the shit out of this. For 100 points less, you're still getting a very good unit that does a similar role to what a Varkalak does. Yeah, a Varkalak's better in combat, and it's more reliable because it's got a 4-up regen, but I think these guys are so good. Like, I would just always have one in the list just to fire it. And you know what? See if a cannon shoots at it. Yeah, go for it. Because that means the cannon's not shooting at the giant Forsaken ones that are marching towards them.
So far in your list, you'd have Forsaken ones and Chimeras.
Yes.
Right, okay. 1 Chimera and a couple of Forsaken ones.
Yeah, fuck it, why not? And then we'll have a big unit of Wretched ones as well.
Right, okay, cool.
'Cause they're good.
I'm imagining your kind of what you've taken from the book as this would be the kind of army you would go with.
Yeah. Come to this a little bit later, but basically in prep for this episode all this week on my train journey in and out to the office, I've been sitting writing Warriors lists, and a Chimera has featured in every single one of them.
Okay, that's cool.
I'm sure...
With the wings upgrade or not?
Nah, I wouldn't be paying for wings.
Okay, I mean, it's 60 points, it's not cheap.
It's 60 points and it actually becomes less, quick.
Good.
And, well, yeah, I mean, it gets light troops, but it's a single model anyway. I don't really understand what the benefit is there. Obviously you get fly, but...
It's slower.
Fuck that. We didn't need that. We're alright. 220 points, please. I think they're really good.
So Chimera is your 3rd top 5?
Yeah, so he's in there.
Okay, what's next?
Number 4 is a controversial one, because I know this guy gets slack on... Slack? Flack. I meant
Okay.
flack. He gets flack.
Yeah.
Maybe it is slack, who knows. He gets flack on the forum, though. And that is the Chosen Lord.
He does. Yeah, he's got a whole thread dedicated to him right now.
Yeah, so I think he's good. I don't see a lot of them, and maybe you can enlighten me as to the reasons why people have issues with him. But from my perspective, he is still pretty cheap for how killy he is. Again, I think he's one of the few units in the game, in the book that's pretty cost effective. There's definitely ways that you can make him insanely expensive, and I think that's where I would draw the line, especially when you start adding the gifts of the Dark Gods.
Yeah.
So obviously he gets that in addition to all his special item allowances, which means that you could be adding on 300 plus points onto an already 300 point unit. But I mean, some of the gifts are super good. Like Entropic Aura is amazing.
So I would say at the minute there's kind of 2 builds that people would say are worth taking.
Okay.
And one of them is an Entropic Aura build, because that is a very, very cool item. The fact that it shuts down armor enchantments and weapon enchantments on all models that he is touching that unit. Doesn't actually have to be touching that specific model.
Yeah,
as long
it's
as
just
that
the
one's in the
unit,
unit that he's touching is very cool. It's very fluffy. I really like that rule. I think that's very cool.
I mean, Demonic Wings is too expensive for what it is. 100 points to fly is ridiculous. Right? No one's paying that.
On a mount.
Yeah, exactly. Whoever said 100 points for that needs to seriously have a look at themselves. Idol of Spite is good. A lot of people are put off by one-use items, but my kind of counter to that is like, how many important combats do you actually fight in a game? And it's normally 1 or 2. So having the ability to pump up your attack, strength, and AP by 1 in that important fight is pretty nice. I
mean, something like that stacks really well with Gluttony.
Yep, exactly.
So you can get they continue +1 strength if he's won that combat after having used that item. So it's worth it.
I don't know, maybe 60 points is still maybe a bit too expensive for it, but it's still good. I like it. Luck of the Dark Gods is insane, because you can easily get to a 1-up armor save in this army, and then you take that and the Talisman of Shielding, and then you're at a 1-up, 4-up, which is unheard of now, basically. And you can get 1-up, 4-up on a food character.
I would say that's probably the most common gift that people take.
The Luck of the Dark Gods.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why wouldn't you? I mean, it's good.
Yeah.
Master of Destruction's good. 40 points is a bit steep for what it is, though.
It is. I mean, they've changed that slightly in that I think originally you couldn't use a spike shield with that, but now you can.
Yeah, they seem to have kind of opened up the spike shield a lot more for the unit entries, which is good because it's kind of fluffy and we want to see more of that.
I mean, that was a cool original thing. I mean, some people swear by them on the right unit, like on a Forsworn unit, because you can, with shields, they are 2-up armor.
Yeah.
On a character as well, because they've changed it. It used to be capped at strength 4, now it's the strength of the unit or the model.
Right.
So these are strength 5 auto hits back on successful armor saves of a 4-up. So if you've got like a 1-up, rerollable guy, you pass all your saves, and any rolls of a 4 or more, you've just done that many strength hits back.
Yeah.
So it's good at its uses. I mean, it's nice because on a mount, this guy's at a 1-up. So taking that, you're basically keeping your save.
Yeah.
And then you can enchant the shields with something like Dustforge for the reroll.
Yeah.
And then that's a very cheap way to get quite a resilient character.
Yeah. I think he's really good. I mean, in terms of raw stats, it's the Chosen Lord and the Vampire counter. Probably, I can't think of anything better on raw stats. Obviously, your Dwarf Kings can get up there, but they've got to be the 2 killiest things, or certainly 2 killiest characters in the game.
Slayer characters are bananas.
Yeah, no, that's true. The Dragon Seekers are pretty mad. But I think this guy's good. So why don't people take him?
Cost. I think people look at all the options and they build a really cool character and they think, fuck, he's 800 points.
Yeah.
I can get a really scary unit for that's scoring and does a variety of other things. Personally, for me, I don't run character heavy lists. I'll bring a sorcerer and make him a general, and then I'm killing 2 birds with 1 stone. I've got magic and I've got my general.
Yeah.
The other thing is, a big weakness in the army generally is synergy. So for most other armies, when you bring your general, you're bringing better leadership, you're bringing additional special rules which stack on top of other things. You're maybe bringing bodyguard, or you're bringing hatred, or you're bringing whatever else to the army. Rerolls if you're like beast herds or whatever. With this guy, he's not doing any of that, because that's the fluff. Is he's there to fight on his own. He doesn't give a shit about anything else. So I think you can build him cheap, you can conserve a lot more points, and like you say, his stats are good. He's still pumping out damage.
Yeah.
But I think people just would rather spend the points elsewhere in the book, because the book generally is very expensive. So I think people look at a Chosen Lord as a luxury. I'd rather have the unit chosen.
I think super killy characters have their spot, and even if he is really expensive, say you totally go mad and you've got, a 700, 800 point Chosen Lord there.
Well, if you want to go mad, stick him on a dragon and give him sloth.
No one's taking dragons, right? No one's taking dragons.
Rest 7 dragon, man. Rest 7 dragon.
But if you go all out and you make him quite expensive, then for points conservation as well, that's massive. Like, because what realistically is going to kill him, apart from another super killy character, and then, I mean, a lot of that will still come down to who rolls better if they smash heads.
Mm.
I mean, stuff like when I'm playing with the vampire count, I don't think I've ever run a vampire count that's cheaper than 700 points. If he dies, my army's fucked anyway, so it's slightly different. But the amount of times the vampire survives games and just conserves these points, really big.
I've run lists with like a dragon sorcerer that's been like 1,000 points and an exalted herald. And I'm like, if you don't kill these 2 models, I've kept 2,000 points.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why other people don't like him. I know people have said things like, okay, he's really killy, but we're talking 6 or 7 attacks. You can go into the units, and even if he lands every hit and does every wound, you can still lose on combat res, depending on where it is you're fighting.
Yeah, okay.
And that can be enough. You're discipline 8. So
I mean, there shouldn't be many combats where you're getting pumped in with res, though. I mean, what are you going to put him in? You're probably going to put him in Warriors or Chosen.
Or knights if you want to run them down.
Or knights, yeah. Realistically, they shouldn't be losing combat by a lot, even if they fuck it. Obviously, if you get flank charged and shit like that, then obviously you're going to lose. But a one-on-one fight, I can't see that a lot of things are going to beat the shit out of them.
In some metas, I think he's actually really popular. So I think in some of the Eastern European countries, like bringing him with like the Burning Portent, the old Chaos Sword.
Oh wow, they're really going all out.
that's the other popular build, it seems like, more in Tropic Aura, or you go mounted with the Chaos Sword.
So when I was writing lists...
Which isn't a bad build.
No.
Because you're punking monsters.
Exactly, yeah. The one thing that annoys me about the Burning Portent is that it's always flaming. So if anything has the Fireborn, then you're fucked.
There you're talking like ID or specific characters. So
yeah,
I think
it's not a huge thing.
With the sword, it takes away a little bit of his utility as well. So like, I mean, he's good against monsters and stuff like that. So if you bring like the Idol of Spite and Gluttony, potentially he can be Strength 7. It's pretty nice.
Yeah. So the Lord build that I kind of made and quite liked was Chosen Lord, Army General, Favour of Lust, simply because it's free. I don't want to spend any points on anything. He's got Halberd, Luck of the Dark Gods, Blessed Inscriptions, Talisman of Shielding, and Thrice Forge. So he's 1 up, 4 up, with 5, Strength 6 attacks, reroll into wound, Divine attacks, AP 3, Offense 8, Defense 7, Agility 7, for 560 points, which I think is very, very competitive price-wise. Again, and this is something I will come back to later on, but I wouldn't bother with the favours. I am not convinced by favours at all for their pricing.
You're talking about the other 6?
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I put Lust on him was because it's free. But I think this guy has a lot of room to move. In the UK, anyway, we don't really see a lot of them. A lot of people tend to either go like you do, just take your Sorcerer as your general and go really character light, or they go, balls out and take Double Herald or the Feldrick Ancestor, who will also return.
Yeah, the Ancestors, I would say the Ancestor's relatively popular. People like him.
Yeah. And the final thing that made my list was actually just the special items.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this isn't, I don't think a particularly Warriors-y thing. I think actually all the army books have done a really good job, or the army design teams have done a really good job of making the army-specific items really good. And I think it's really cool now that the vast majority of lists that you'll open up, there's the same items from the core rules that everyone takes, but there's so much more like army items that are making their way into lists, whereas before, and like a few editions ago, they were kind of the reserve of the fluff players.
Yeah.
But now, you're starting to see more and more of these things, and I think Warriors have got a really nice selection. Like the Zealot Banner was a new addition for 50 points. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's like the de facto choice now on Warrior blocks.
Yeah, just to pump up your attacks even more. It's crazy good. The Symbol of Slaughter is 35 points. This is another item that I don't see people take, which I think is fucking bananas.
It's actually people that run Doom Lords take this, and I've seen it on, like if people want to run like a cheap Barbarian Chieftain BSB.
Yep. That's exactly what I did in my list.
Yeah, like it's cheap, right? At 35 points, you're getting +2 attacks, +2 agility, and magical attacks. Obviously, because it's a
lightning reflexes essentially as well.
Why are you getting lightning reflexes?
No, it's against the model.
It's against.
Slightly less good, but still good.
Yeah, we'll touch on that later. But this is one of the things I find in the book that's really frustrating.
I mean, there's so many good items here as well. Like, I mean, Gladiator Spirits, the armor enchantment with +1 armor and parry, that's super good. It's like Orb of Foreboding, it's 55 points.
Yeah, it's actually really funny that.
Yeah, it's 55 points, so it is quite pricey. But that one item could potentially win you a game.
Massive help.
Yeah, it's
like we played
so good
once, and it was your vampires. It was what brought the Helm all.
Yeah, this is a nightmare for vampire players. Yeah,
drop your Skelly Block, please.
Oh shit! Okay, so he's going to know where I deploy now.
Yeah.
I mean, Vamps haven't got a lot of kind of stealth going for them in deployment anyway, so I think this is really, a really cool item, really good. Maybe, 55 points is expensive, but it is very good. The Lord of the Damned.
Yeah, that's essential if you're running.
Massive for irredeemable stuff. Even the Weird Stones. This is the one where when you get hit by a Strength 5 attack or an AP 5 attack, you get a 4-up Aegis, and that's for 35 points. It does have the restriction that if the guy is gigantic, you only get it till you only get that one roll. Whereas if he's standard or large, he gets it to the end of the phase.
It's really there for if you're running a dragon.
Yeah, a dragon or a big mount.
You're getting it. That one turn you need to move out from cover or whatever. You've got that 4-up.
Yeah. Wasteland Torch. That's cool. 25 points.
Yeah.
It's very decent.
Yeah. There's one item there that is hidden overpriced.
I would argue there's 2 items that are overpriced.
Okay. I won't fight you. I mean, people want to drop points on down with that. But Ledger of Souls at 90 points is bullshit.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, this is a thing that, again, I'll come back to later, but this is one of the things that in this book that just, I don't know why you would take. It doesn't scream take me. The other thing I would say is slightly overcosted is the Icon of the Infinite, and it's overcosted because you can't take it on core units.
Yeah, that's a change. You used to be able to.
If you could take on core units, fair enough, 50 points. But you can't. It's just meh. The fact that it's bound is good because you can keep pumping them out, but...
That seems to be a departure from where the book was. So if you remember in 1.3, you had the Mark of Change. And what the Mark of Change did was it would give Wizard Conclave.
Yeah.
So somewhat similar to the Demon Legions book, you could have multiple min-size units that had bound spells, and they were typically all missiles.
Yeah.
So you could run basically, it wasn't really a gun line, but it was a nice complement to the fact that you didn't really have much range pressure.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's why it's in the book. It's kind of like an homage to that.
But one of the big problems of the army, and I'm sure it's something we'll talk about, is the ability to clear chaff. And this gives the army a nice way to stack up on magic missiles that you can keep on casting, because they're all bound. I wish you could take it on core. I think if you could take it on core, you'd see a lot more of it.
The Zealot banner is the de facto choice now, because the new hotness is the 30-man warrior block great weapons. You run them in Horde and you bring the banner. You've got 30 strength 6 attacks.
And then you throw a parry unit at them and watch them shit themselves.
Yeah, watch them cry. But I think having that on core would be a nice alternative if you wanted to run min-size units to warriors.
Yeah.
Doing that with the old Mark of Lust was really popular.
Yeah.
Because again, you could basically have your core across 3 10-man units of warriors.
Yeah.
And then if they're all pumping out those kind of spells, that would be pretty good.
I mean, if they're worried about them going on mid-sized barb units and using them like that, just say you can't take them on barbarians, and then that kind of
that would be a better restriction.
But yeah, I think overall the special items are very cool. I like them a lot.
Yeah, they are good. I think I probably don't get a lot of use out of them because I run such character light lists.
Yeah.
So I've got really no opportunity to bring them. But if you were bringing a couple of characters, then I think Ledger of Souls you just bring if you're bringing, not Ledger of Souls, Lord of the Damned you just bring if you're bringing irredeemable stuff. Even Immortal Gauntlets.
Yeah, I quite like these.
There's a build you can do with Entropic Aura.
Yeah, exactly.
So you bring Wrath with a great weapon, you stick it on a war dais, and you bring Immortal Gauntlets, and you can bring the Talisman, so you can get them with a 2-up, 5-up. Your agility 9 or 10 on the charge at strength 7. You're taking away any armor protection and magical weapons, and you're striking them at strength 7 with divine or flaming attacks if you want.
Yep, that's really nice.
That's a hard counter to a lot of characters.
I like that a
So,
lot.
I mean, there's some cool options.
Yep.
Interestingly, this isn't so much of a gripe, but I was just interested in this, so this is what I did this morning on the train. I added up all the army-specific magical items across all the books.
Okay.
VC and Orcs and Goblins only have 10. Warriors have 12. Every other book has either 14 or 15.
So all I'm hearing right now is VC need a buff.
Well, VC and Ogres have 5 or 4 less than most of the books. I think there's 9 of the 16 books have 15 specific magic items. That's not including dwarves and demons.
That is interesting.
Which made me think, I wonder if that was a pre-agreed limit. No army should have more than 15. And if you look at the spread, so Undying Dynasties have 9 or 10 of their 15 are artifacts, but they have very few weapon enchantments and armor enchantments.
Okay.
So it's interesting.
That is interesting.
I would like another weapon enchantment in the Warrior book. I'm not saying I would know what that would be, but for a close combat army, I think
2 weapon enchantments is a bit shit.
2 is a bit shit. Our armor is good enough. I'm happy with the ones we've got. We've got spike shields for an extra armory type thing. I'd be happy with an extra weapon enchantment. for the sake of balance and impartiality, I would make the point of saying that warriors are not the worst when it comes to the number of special items.
That's weird you said that, right? Because I've never felt that, writing VC lists that don't have a lot of magical items. I think it's probably because you get all the bloodlines and stuff, so you kind of, that's like an equivalent, I guess, of magical items.
Yeah, I guess the complexity falls in different places in different books. So if you're getting a lot of customization from other places, you're probably not even aware.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking that the warriors had less than everyone else either. I was just curious, because I know some people in the past have said they would like another weapon enchantment for the warriors. Like, we used to have a spear enchantment and stuff in 1.3.
What did the spear do again?
It gave you +1 strength and something else.
It was a buff, right? It was like a buffing thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so there was no major disagreements there in positive stuff. We were kind of agreed on all points, which is good.
Yeah.
So let's go to the negative Nelly side of the show. And let's discuss... Is
that going to be my new name now?
I mean, you're collecting quite a lot of nicknames, the Fluffer, Negative Nelly, Destroyer of Ed.
Yeah, Destroyer of Ed.
It's a good one.
The second time I've beat him in God knows how long.
So let's talk about the negative stuff. So,
okay,
Paul, what is your first negative thing?
This is like an obvious one. I think most people would be at least sympathetic with this, and I would say that points costs in the book are pretty high across the board. Obviously, we're paying for high stats. We're paying for like the elite nature of a lot of the units, and I think I appreciate the fact that it's the first new book, and they wanted to err on the side of caution. They have a kind of iterative approach when it comes to pricing. They don't want to have lots of really big price jumps, and they want to do it slow and gradual so that they can try and balance things, and that all makes sense. But there's just certain things in the book that are way, way too expensive. So a couple of things that spring to mind are Ledger of Souls, which we touched on, which is 90 points, and Veil Walker, which is 100 points. So, according to the army strengths and weaknesses, which we alluded to earlier, one of the strengths is large damaging spells.
Grab the salt, boys.
Veil Walker is a very cool mechanic. I think, rules-wise, it's a very cool addition, and it's supposed to be there to help damage output through magic. And the Ledger of Souls is supposed to complement that. According to the fluff, people that have sold their soul for Hellforged armor, they're on the path of the favoured. When they die, what's supposed to effectively happen is those souls are basically absorbed by the sorcerer, and they're used to buff magic, which is very cool. Very fluffy. So that's where soul tokens came from in the original 2.0 release. They've amalgamated that just into veil tokens just to simplify it, which is fine, because you had too many things to try and keep track of. Too many tokens, too many cards and bits and bobs on the table. That's all very well and good. So they're there basically to buff the sorcerer, so that you're generating more veil tokens, and then with Veil Walker you can be spending them to like increase the range of spells. You can be forcing re-rolls on things, which is cool, and there's lots of interesting synergies there with some of the paths. It helps offset some of the weaknesses that you get with occultism, because the range on occultism is dogshit, but no one takes them because they're too bloody expensive. So if you bring a wizard master, you're paying the 225 point upgrade to make him a master.
Yep.
You're spending 100 points on Veil Walker, and then you're spending 90 points on Ledger of Souls. You've got a 600 plus point character. You've not spent anything to protect them yet. The price becomes so bloated that you're like, okay, I've got this one guy that's really cool, but, I mean, it's not like the magic phase is a safe bet. I mean, I think the magic phase is too important not to play in the game just now, and I really like it. It's a fun part of the game, but we've all had games where magic's a bit of a bust, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like it's a safe bet anymore. On average, you should get at least one spell off per turn, which is maybe better than the old system, but it's just too expensive. I mean, this is something that the army is supposed to be good at. It's an original mechanic to the book, and yet no one's using it because it's just priced way out of being useful.
So I really don't disagree with you, and cost is something that's on my list as well. Have you ever played with the Ledger of Souls?
I've never played with the Ledger of Souls. I have played with Veil Walker.
Yeah.
back in one of the previous editions, some of these rules were also tied to the old Battle Shrine design.
Yep.
So if you brought the Battle Shrine, you could basically pay for these upgrades on that rather than paying for it on your Sorcerer. You would have to bring a Sorcerer anyway because you would only maybe have 1 or 2 spells on the Battle Shrine. But it helped spread the points, so you didn't have all your points in one place. And the Shrine was tanky enough that it could kind of operate on its own a little bit. So the Ledger of Souls, it basically increases your Veil token cap.
See, this
as well.
I think this is why it's expensive. Because you go from 3 Veil tokens that you can store to 6. And that is massive. And I think that, that is very strong in a game where, like you say, you're really realistically only going to get 1 or 2 spells off a turn. So it's essentially giving you an extra dice, which can be the difference between getting another spell off. But I think because Veilwalker uses your Veil tokens, you needed to have a way of boosting your Veil tokens with Veilwalker. Because, or else you're never going to use it because you're never going to have that many Veil tokens. But it doesn't take much between Veilwalker and something like the Gauntlets, and you're really starting to eat through your Veil tokens.
Well, like if you were to run an occultism, then there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of mechanics you have to be aware of. So I think it's something that also takes a bit of time to get used to and a bit of finesse in order to know how to use properly, which isn't a bad thing. Like I don't take away anything from the book for implementing those kind of rules, but other books basically have mechanisms for generating tokens which are way cheaper and simpler, like Skull Fetish in the Orc and Goblin books is amazing. The other thing to say as well, the Ledger of Souls, it's only a 12-inch radius. So if you're losing guys more than 12 inches away, you're not generating anything. So again, there's these restrictions that are placed on it beyond the high cost, which limits its use. Like in my mind, if a sorcerer is harvesting souls of people that have died, why can't that just be board wide?
Yeah.
Especially if you're sacrificing them for occultism. I mean, you can sacrifice dogs or whatever, but I mean, chaff's a bit of a premium in the book. So what are you sacrificing?
Dog or warrior.
60-point chosen guy. Yay! No one's going to do that. I'm being facetious, but I think if this is something that's supposed to be unique to the book, it's supposed to boost a strength, and I don't think you should have to pay that amount for it. Both things could easily be 50 points. Bring them both, you're adding 100 points onto your character. And it's on a sorcerer, which he ain't going to win a fight. If he's fucked. I mean, he's got 2 strength 3 attacks. He's not the Chaos Sorcerer of old that could fight. These items could afford to be much cheaper. And then at least if people are actually getting to use them, you're in a better position to then try and balance it, because right now no one's using them. So the design of these could be absolutely fine, but we're not generating any useful data here to say to the design guys, like, oh, by the way, they work really well.
Yeah. I mean, I'd quite like to see it in play. And I know that if any of the design guys listen to it, this is going to be very unhelpful because...
Well, it's not even the design, it's the price. It's the people that have priced it.
See, I think the issue with the price, though, is that because it doubles your Veil token pool, so that is massive. And as someone who uses Magic every single game and relies on Magic, having double the Veil tokens is just like massive impact on your game.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I agree that it's overpriced, and I agree that see how that would make its way into a list, unless you're catering your list to that. I mean, I love Magic, but I wouldn't cater my list to it because it's not reliable enough. I don't know how much cheaper it can go because of the Veil token rule, because it is so good. Like, I mean, I think if you made it 50 points, everyone would take it. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I'm just thinking that I don't know how much of an impact that would actually have. I think it would be big, but maybe I'm just overestimating how much 1 more extra dice is going to be.
Until people can actually play with it, we're never going to know. And I don't think people are going to play with it until it's priced at a level that is at least attractive. And right now it's not attractive.
Yeah, okay.
If they were to bring it down to, say, 50 points and people played the shit out of it and it was broken as hell, then I would rather they keep it cheap and tweak the rule to be less broken than say, right, we're going to make it more expensive again. Because then you're just going to go back to, well, no one's bringing it. I think that would be a better way to go. In my mind, because it's supposed to be an army strength, this is something that we're supposed to be good at. Pricing it at a level where no one's going to bring it, we're not getting any benefit out of this strength. It's theoretical at that level. There are 2 examples of things that I think are generally, like, too expensive.
I don't think anyone could say that the Warriors book is priced well. across the board. And it's my number one bad thing. And actually what I wrote was favours, because they're the embodiment of the pricing issue. Everyone understands that you're paying for stats when you play warriors. The issue is that even your basic warriors, which are comparable with elite infantry in other books, admittedly.
Yeah.
But if you start taking favours on them, they're easily up into an 800, 900 point unit. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like,
and you're limited at 20 models.
No one, why would you pay that? Like, I understand that people just now are taking the big blocks of the great weapon guys, like 900
they're
points.
The vanilla guys.
Yeah, exactly. If you lose a 900 point model, I know this might be contradictory because I've just been going on about Chosen Lords and points retention and stuff, but I think it's easier to lose a unit than it is a character. People might disagree with me there. But if you lose that unit, you are fighting an uphill battle now. I just, like, the pricing in some of this stuff is just bananas. Like, I don't understand how someone looked at something like the Feldrake Ancestor and said, that's 720 points. Oh, and by the way, he can't take any special items, and if he does, it's double the points that anyone else would pay. What are you smoking? That is, like...
It's bananas.
I ain't paying that. That's shit. I mean, that's just a theme throughout the book. And the most cost-effective units in the game are things that don't rely on favours, like your wretched ones, and your vanilla warriors and warrior knights and warrior chariots, because you're basically just paying for their base stats there. So 5 knights is 240 points, which is comparable with most other heavy cavalry in the game, and they're very good. The issue then becomes if you take something like Envy on them, or Lust, you're 8 or 12 points per model, and that's on top of banners and stuff. It's so easy to run out of points in this army, because you try and make it customizable, you try and make it fun and flavourful, and the price just pushes you out of, like, what
Lances
you can
on
do.
knights are 10 points per model.
That is absolutely ridiculous.
The thing that they're supposed to be good at, I mean, they're supposed to be like the high first turn damage unit, as opposed to the Chosen Knights, which are grinding. A 10-man warrior knight unit with lances and a zealot banner, I think is 650 points. And I think that's okay. I think that's a good unit. But then, as you say, you're not utilising the thing that's supposed to make the book unique.
Yeah.
Which is favours. Because it just makes the unit too expensive. So I would agree with you, like, favours are priced too high.
It's frustrating.
It is frustrating, because there's a lot of favours that I think complement a lot of specific types of unit that you can't really use.
Yeah.
Because you want to actually have more than 2 units on the table.
The Chosen Knights are kind of the embodiment of this, because, I mean, Chosen Knights are very good.
I would go so far as to say they are good. I'm not prepared to say they're very good.
Okay, they are good.
They're not as good as they used to be. And they're more expensive now as well.
Yeah, they used to be very, very cost effective.
Yeah.
They're now less cost effective, but still good. But as soon as you start putting, the good marks that you want to have on them, stuff like Sloth or Envy, the cost just goes through the roof. I don't know what the answer is. I'm basically just moaning, and I'm sorry to the design people that are listening to this. Because if you just make them cheaper, I'm not sure how much of an effect that'll have. But obviously people will take them. I think maybe they do just need to come down a bit, but I'm not sure. It feels like there's a bigger problem with costing in the book, but you see it most clearly with favours, because you've already got a very expensive unit. You want to make it better or more flavourful or whatever you want to go for, and then you somehow arrive at 800, 900 points.
One of the strengths of the book is supposed to be customization, right?
Yeah.
So you've got these amazing stat lines, and then they say, oh, you can take this, you can take that, you can all these different weapon options. You're like a kid in a sweet shop. And by the time you finish making this awesome unit, as you say, you've arrived at 800 points. I mean, it's amazing on paper, but the reality is that it'll always struggle to get its points back. And it's an elite unit, so you're talking 20 guys max.
And super hard units like that do not run the game that they like the way they used to. Like things like Death Stars are still, you still see Death Stars. Death Stars are still good. They don't dominate games the way that they used to. If you bring a unit that's got super killer characters and has, got all the marks in the world or favours, whatever, and you're talking like a minimum 2,000 points in that unit, you're probably still going to lose a game, because A, people won't fight it, or B, it can still get beaten, because just the way the game works now.
In a lot of the cases, we're talking about movement 4 and 5 infantry blocks.
Yeah.
So you just stay away from them.
And what makes it even worse, and this is specifically for favours, is the negative things inside the favours, which you're already paying money for. Wrath's the most obvious one, where you're getting lightning reflexes and +1 agility, and +1 at hit in the first turn of combat. Oh, sorry, you're not even getting +1 at hit anymore.
You're getting lightning reflexes.
Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. I mean, obviously, lightning reflexes is an amazing rule, definitely top 5. +1 agility is awesome. Agility wins the game. But you're paying for units to hit you better.
Yeah.
In the first round of combat. Admittedly, they're only applied in the first round, but, like, you're paying for that?
Yeah, this is my second big gripe with the book, is a lot of the things in the book come with associated negatives. So Wrath is my number one fucking complaint when it comes to this, because Wrath, talking about price, on Chosen, Wrath is priced so high because it stacks so well with great weapons.
Yeah.
So it's priced for the best possible combo. So I run that 10-man unit of Wrath with great weapons because it's amazing. So your agility 5 base, this will make you agility 6 if you're charged in the first round. So chances are you're going first. And if I charge, you're going first for sure at agility 7. And you're hitting with 30 attacks.
Which is bananas, yeah, it's really, really good.
It's an amazing unit, but you're also making yourself harder to hit, and it's just
Easier
against the unit that's over 800 points that's so elite. And personally, I don't like the fact that it's supposed to be, oh, it's because you're Wrath, it's because you don't care if you get hit. It's like, that's dumb as fuck. Of course you hate if you get fucking hit. Like, when I read the fluff, the section on Wrath, it struck me more that these guys were all about, like, honor.
Yeah, it's like martial prowess, yeah.
Yeah, they didn't come across to me as being reckless at all. That's like old GW Wrath. So, in my mind, if we're going to be paying stupid prices, I would say lightning reflexes all the time. That's what you pay for. You only get the +1 agility in the first round of combat, and then that's it.
Yeah.
I would separate those two things out slightly, but the +1 to hit is bullshit. It really annoys me because you can still flub. Everyone has bad rolls. So then you're fighting against things and they're like, alright, okay, so I'm hitting you on 4s. You're like, no, you're hitting me on 3s because you get +1 to hit me. And it's such a sour thing to have to tell your opponent.
Yeah.
So, like, Wrath is up there for me. And there's loads throughout the book. We were talking about Symbol of Slaughter. If you take it, you get +1 to be hit again. It's bullshit. So if you take that with Wrath, you're totally fucked.
+2 to hit, fuck me.
And then you've got things like the breath weapon on the Felgic Ancestor.
Oh, so this was my Brucey bonus negative because it didn't make the top 5.
Yeah,
but
you're like, yeah, I get a breath weapon. Oh, but wait, I lose a wound? Why am I losing a wound?
Pointless rules and restrictions.
It's so annoying.
Yeah, that rule is dog shit. Like, I remember someone tried to explain it to me, like, because the Feldrakes aren't really dragons anymore, it hurts them to try and do that. But like, you've just paid 700 odd points for this fucking thing, which I think is useless anyway.
This is the disconnect, right? It's like, okay, that makes sense from a fluff standpoint, but don't make it a fucking rule.
Yeah.
It's a game. It's supposed to be fun. We don't make people with, like, fucking handguns, or every time you shoot, you lose a guy who's they're really unreliable and they just blow up.
Yeah, you take 45 minutes to reload.
Yeah, so you only get 3 shots in the game. It's just like, you could apply this kind of thing across the board to loads of stuff. It's not a fun part of the book at all. It's actually really annoying.
Yeah. And it goes further as well, because stuff like, so one of the weaknesses that the warriors are meant to have is special deployments.
Yeah.
Which is fair enough, okay? Fine. Nobody wants to see a 30-man warrior block Vanguard at them. I get that.
It'd be hilarious.
What I fucking hate is stuff like, you've got a light cavalry unit in this game, in your book, the Flayers.
Yeah.
Who are on the border of being good. They're not quite, but they're in that area. The Vanguard's 6 inches. That is infuriating. Like, I understand that they're trying to differentiate units and they don't want just, strength 6 AP3, right? Okay, fine, whatever, I can get behind that. Light cavalry that doesn't perform the role of light cavalry is fucking stupid. Like,
yeah, that was added. It almost seems like they added that just to say, oh, no, you have it.
Yeah.
Like, who's bringing that unit for a fucking 6-inch Vanguard? I mean, they've got a lot of cool things going for them. I mean, they're Movement 10, March 20, Light Troops, Strider, Feign Flight. All very cool, but they're also Res 3 with no fucking save.
Yeah, like, they're like cavalry. Like, the price is the same as all other light cavalry. And I totally get the thing that, they're saying they don't want to make things the exact same. So they don't want all strength 6 attacks in the game to be AP3. Okay, fair enough, I get that. But it just, when you're priced the same, I know, again, we're comparing units, blah, 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 blah. But when you're priced the same as other units that are in other army books competing in the same area as you, you want to be on the same level. And it just annoys me that stuff like, I mean, Vanguard should be a pretty universal rule for light cavalry. There's nothing wrong with everyone having Vanguard 12 who has Vanguard.
I think what makes this unit so shit is the fact that they've replaced something that was better that did the same thing. So Hell Riders or Hell Striders, or what the fuck they were called in 1.3, they were the same thing. They were Lust, so you had rerolls on charges. They were light cav. They had a very high march rate. They had a much better armor save, so it didn't matter that they had low res, because you still had something to rely on. Their special weapon, the Skinning Lash, which basically does a sweeping attack, that isn't near as good as what they used to have. So again, it's like you're paying equivalent points, but they're worse.
No, it's definitely not as good as it's definitely not as good as it used to be. My issue with the Skinning Lash is it's 5 points per model on a unit that's butt naked, and that if anything looks at it, they're going to die. The creme de la creme for this unit, and I'm very sorry to everyone that's listening because we've fallen into a very dark place now. They have Battle Fever, which is the single most pointless rule in the game. Nobody's taken a unit because of Battle Fever. The only thing that is good about Battle Fever is that it gives the Barbarian Chiefs battle focus and hatred, but only for them, not for the unit. And I understand that you don't want to have units doing the same thing. Like, you don't want all kind of Barbarian-y units having hatred and shit like that. Like, I totally get that. But, like, there must be something better you can do than reroll ones to charge. Especially when you give them fucking spears and they're so good with spears. Why the fuck would you want to charge? Like, it's just, it's just...
I mean, to be honest, that's another big thing in the book. Just generally barbarians, no one's really using them. The only thing they get used for is, like, sacrificial bunkers if you're using, like, occultism. You want something to kill, or you want somewhere to put your wizard that doesn't have to fight. You just bring, like, 20-man unit of those, pop them in the back somewhere and they can't get shot at.
Again, I think barbarians are almost good.
They're too expensive for not being quite good enough.
I would disagree there.
They compete directly too much with warriors.
But then that's unavoidable because they're both core.
Well, it's unavoidable because they don't do anything else other than what warriors do. If you made them specialists at, like, alright, you can bring 10 with Vanguard, or you can bring 10 with Ambush with throwing weapons, or you can bring Skirmish and you can use them for this, or maybe if you bring 10 you get Scout or something. Like, give them something that is completely different to what warriors do.
Totally agree with that. Like, scouting guys with throwing weapons and bows and stuff like that, or little ambush and raiding parties, that would be really cool, really fluffy, really like that. However, for their costing, right, it's 9 points per model.
Yeah.
If you give it a spear and shield, right, it goes up to 12, which is 1 point more expensive than a skeleton with spear and shield. Now, I know that obviously you bring skellies back, and that's a massive part of their pricing, and I totally concede that. But strength 4 and spear is such a good combo. I think they're almost there. I think the issue is that whereas other army books have kind of comparable infantry that they can easily buff with synergies within them, the barbarians are left. They're left by themselves, and the best synergy you get is with the chief, but it only affects him. Yeah.
So if they had something like bodyguard for barbarian chiefs, or battle focus if there's a barbarian chief in there or something,
or just like minimized leadership if just something. You need something.
Just give them something. Yeah. Barbarians need a bit of help. I'm not saying this is the way to go, but a la 1.3, you could bring 2 units of 40 with flails and wrath, and be like, fuck you, elves. Come fight me. I don't care if you wreck my units, they're still going to hit you. I don't think they should be necessarily just like a big glass cannon type unit. You could make them that way, and it would be different from warriors, which are supposed to grind. So they would have a unique role in the book, but that's more like Asklander territory.
This is something else that I've seen in the forum, is the idea that if you want to play barbarians, you play Asklanders. I think that is 100% unacceptable. Like, barbarians are part of the warriors unit first and foremost. Asklanders is an auxiliary book that, is yeah, it's fun, and definitely if people take it and enjoy it, play it, go for it, but it's not an army book. And the idea that you should just relegate those units because you can use them in an auxiliary book, that's idiotic.
This is interesting. This is maybe a good point of discussion. So, a while back on the forums, there were discussions around barbarians and what people thought of them, what people thought could be done to make them more appealing.
Yeah.
And I suggested a rather drastic measure.
That's so like people.
Yeah, I know. I'm normally so calm and collected when it comes to the word, but not even suggested. I put this out there because I was interested in what people thought of it as an idea. So at the time, my thinking around the book was, and I'm not necessarily disagreeing with myself, I think part of this is true, that there's a problem in the book around legacy. And it's supposed to be a new book, but the designers are in this difficult position where they have to try and honour people's models. Obviously, everyone came from 8th. This is why 9th exists. They have to appeal to that crowd that played these armies. So we need undead armies that can be regrown. We need dwarven armies that have bullshit rules because no one will play them otherwise.
Why would you? Come on.
Exactly. So with warriors, obviously, barbarians are such an iconic unit. And I suggested that what if you just took all the barbarian units out and Feldrax? That was for a slightly different, not because I didn't like them, it was a suggestion that you make Asklanders an official faction. So none of this, it's a bit kind of homebrew-esque, we've not really balanced it properly. Balance it properly, make it a proper book, make that your barbarian/monster army, and within the warrior book you focus on Path of the Favoured, Irredeemable, and Exiled Unists, and monsters. And you make a more cohesive book that is more 9th Age specific. Because part of the problem with Eldrax was, before trying to balance different units, because everything's close combat orientated, right? But you've got like 20 choices to do close combat. You have to have units which are different enough to give you choice. But then when you come to design it, there are issues there, because it's like, right, well, we're going to make Forsworn really tanky. And you're like, yeah, but why do we have Feldrax then? They're really tanky. So you start getting like crossover between units.
Yeah, you get redundancy for the same categories.
Yeah. So I suggested take away barbarians, take away Feldrax, and focus on this part of the book. And I put a poll out. I mean, I'm not anyone that's involved in making the book, and I said that obviously no one is expecting that to happen. But I suggested, would people be okay with that? So there was about 50% of people, I'm going to get the percentages slightly wrong, but more or less the point is the same. About 50% of people said they would be okay with that. And the remaining 50% were split. There was maybe like 20% of people said, no way, keep them in the book, they're part of the book, they need to be there. And the remaining part said, keep Feldrax, bump barbarians.
Fuck the barbs.
Fuck the barbs. Or vice versa. It made me think of the poll they did for war machines.
Yeah.
So remember they said, should they be square or should they be circle?
Yeah.
And I think that the poll kind of leaned towards they should be square. But then they said, well, that's cool and all, but no, we're just going to go and keep them circle.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like the design team had already made the decision. So it was interesting because I kind of looked at that poll the same way and been like, well, you could make an argument that most people would actually be okay with bumping these units out the book. So
in defense of the design team, who I've just spent the last 20 minutes slagging, there are... The issue with the forum is that you tend to have a vocal minority who portray themselves as the voice of the faction.
Collective.
Yeah. And that's an issue. And there's certain communities that are far worse than others in it. But the problem then is that these factions do not tend to know what's good for them. And I say that as least patronizing as I can. I mean, I've seen some things where people have been talking like really, good conversation back and forward about ideas that are fucking terrible. And they like, no way should that be introduced into the game. That's not in my opinion, that's a fact, right? If some of this shit ended up in here, like it would be chaos, right? We're not doing that. So I think there is an element of people don't know what's best for them sometimes. I'm not saying this is one of them. I'm just saying that this is the issue with using the forum as a barometer, because stuff tends to gain momentum when it shouldn't. And I'm very thankful to people like Dan Thomas, who will sit and listen and communicate with people. Like, I don't know, he must have more hours in his day than everyone else.
He's an academic. We all know what academics are like.
Well, it's very true. But, like, he sits and he talks and he tries to show them that that is a dog shit idea and we shouldn't do that in the nicest possible way.
Yeah, I would agree with you 100%. And just to make that point even more so within the context of the Warrior book. So when the Warrior book came out originally in 2.0, you couldn't have favors in a lot of units.
Yep.
So they made this big change. Basically everything in your granny could have a favor, could have a mark in 1.3. 2.0 came out and it was only chosen units.
Yeah. And
that was a massive departure from the legacy game. A lot of people didn't like it. I didn't like it because it's like, well, our army's supposed to be really customizable. We're supposed to have all this choice. We got told, we got really excited we were going to have these 7 new gods, and now, despite the fact that we've got 7 new favors, we can't actually access them on most of the book.
Yeah.
So at the time, as a compromise, you basically got an extra support and attack in the back rank for Path of the Favored units, as well as rerolls on break checks. So this is when everyone was running the Chosen Knight spam.
Yep.
So you'd run Pride, so you'd
why wouldn't you?
in with Cold-Blooded.
Yep.
Your whole army would be fearless, and you could just push towards a gun line and be like, shoot me, I don't care. And that was really strong, actually. And I think now there's a lot of people on the forums that have said that pushing for favours on these units has been a bad thing in the long run. Because, like we said, they cost too much, so no one's using them anyway. The loss of the extra support attack as standard was a big change, and hence why the Zealot banner has came about. I think the mechanic in which you add favours to these non-chosen units, so you have to pay for this chosen champion.
Yeah.
So you pay for the champion upgrade, and then you pay for the chosen champion upgrade, and then you pay the points for the favours. So not only are you paying really high prices for the favours, you're paying an extra like 40 points on top of it.
It's just madness.
So it's crazy. So I think that's an example of where the community is pushed for something that, in hindsight, I would think a lot of people would say, yeah, maybe we shouldn't have pushed for that. And it's came back and it's bit us in the butt.
Yeah.
What I would say as a caveat to that, though, is the design team have a really hard job. And like you say, listening to people on the forum, it's a fucking wonder that anyone actually sticks at it. Because you can't please everybody. There's always going to be people.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're trying to appease half the crowd while trying to implement something that you think is good. I don't envy them. But what I would say is the communication is fucking dreadful sometimes.
Yeah.
So if the community is pushing for something, they should be in a position to say, right, okay, we will consider this, but there will be consequences. And some of those consequences might be this, because we can't give you favours on top of those benefits, because it would be broken as fuck. And they don't say things like this.
Yeah.
So I think because they're the ones in the know, and they've got the expertise, and they can appreciate things like balance better than most people can, what they need to get better at is the communication side of things. And like you say, people like Dan Thomas are very good. And Dan has been very active on the Warrior forums, it should be said, talking to people and listening to what people have got to say. There has to be better communication between them and the community. Because it being very one-sided, it's easy to appreciate that they're just going to turn off and be like, look, you guys are just complaining all the time. This is just white noise now. So the community doesn't help itself. And I think part of that problem is expectations from what we had before in terms of legacy, while trying to adapt to like the new direction in the book. There's a lot, like we said in the prose thing, there's a lot of good things in the book, but a lot of the new stuff as well, it's just hampered by these associated negatives that we don't like. Or I would even say like one of my negatives is some of the design I just don't like at all. It's not to say that it's bad, it's just a personal preference that I don't like it. Like Path of the Exiled used to be better, I think, personally, than what it is now. They've changed it.
So what was Exiled? So
Path of the Exiled before, if you were basically stubborn in the first combat. So if you had like a little 5-man unit fallen and you wanted to charge into something, as long as you didn't explode or get killed outright, you could basically pin things. Now, if you fail a break test and you're Path of the Exiled, you get to attack again, and then you're removed from the table.
What is Path of Exile is like the Fallen, right?
Yeah, so this is like the first level of the mutants. So you've got favoured, exiled, then irredeemable.
Yes, these are the guys
So
that
exiled,
fucked up a little bit.
Yeah, so these are your Fallen and your Forsworn and your Doomlord. These are these kind of units.
Right.
So, for instance, you could have a unit of like 8 or 9 Forsworn. Because people are running Forsworn in blocks now. So this
I think that new rule where they become spawn if they die. Sorry, not spawn.
Yeah.
Oh shit, that was really bad of me. Wretched ones.
So
I think that's really
Damnation.
cool. I think that's really good. Yeah.
Damnation is a super fluffy rule.
Yeah. And it's
33 points per model.
It's good on the table as well. It's fluffy and good on the table.
I'll get back to Damnation, but Path of the Exiled, now, if you fail your break check, you just die. You can't really use the unit the same way.
Do you not attack again then die?
You attack again and die, yeah. But say, for instance, in the case of Forsworn are like 2 attacks each, strength 4. You attack again if you want. They're not there to deal damage. So, with Path of the Exiled, if you're running just like a 6-man unit, because a 6-man unit's not super expensive. It's actually, I want to say, 400 points. If you hit something and you don't do a lot of damage and you say, alright, okay, roll an 8, I fail, there's no opportunity to rally that unit, to save the points. You basically just lost 400 points because you can't roll high enough. Again, it's like such a departure from the normal rules that punishes you, and you can't really use the unit in the same way as you would like to use them.
Okay, I see your point.
So, from that point of view, I don't like that change. Damnation is very cool. That's a super fluffy rule. I really like it.
You have to pay for it as well, though, don't you? 'Cause
You're paying for it, and this is the other thing. You're paying for it, and you only get benefit of it when you lose, which is kind of shit.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys are supposed to be trying to not turn into spawn. You don't really want to be paying points and be like, I hope you lose. I'll let us spawn now.
See you in hell.
So you could run like little like min-size units, like little 3 guys with Damnation. You go into combat, you get the shit kicked out of you, you pull the unit, and you have a little like unbreakable dude there to hold them. Because the thing is as well, you're taking casualties, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to have 3 guys there left. So you've maybe got 1 or 2. Personally, I would just bring Wretched Ones. I wouldn't dick around with Damnation because it's actually cheaper just to bring rather than bringing the Forsworn.
Yeah.
And then when they die, you've lost the points, and the Wretched Ones count as a summoned unit.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really cool rule, but again, you're paying for something that you only get the benefit of it when you lose. For an army that's all about dealing damage in close combat. I don't personally like that. That's a personal preference. I would rather it do something that it just make them stubborn. Stubborn for a turn was enough. I mean, they were tanky. They used to be res 5.
Back to kind of the issue of the double-sided rules, which I remember them talking about this because I got to see stuff when I was part of the Empire team for what's it called? ACS. So the idea is that it helps build more customizable armies because you pay to do something, but you can't do something else. So it's kind of like you've got to be careful, you've got to be really tactical about how you want to build your lists and stuff like that. So the theory of it, I think, is good. The issue is that it's implemented in such a way that you pay points to shoot yourself in the face. And it's not like things like fun restrictions, like some of the honours that the Highborn Elves can get. You know, you get this honour, it buffs your character, it synergizes well with this unit, but you can't take so much of that unit because you've done this. And the same in the Vampire book. You go Strigoi, but your magic is going to be weaker.
Yeah, it's like the Ogre Cans if you bring like a Mammoth Hunter or Wild Heart builds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would class all of those as fun restrictions because although it's a restriction that you deal with at the list building phase, and you can still build very good lists or very fun lists or both. I think the issue with a lot of the Warriors rules is that issue of you're paying for that benefit, which also shoots you in the face in game. You've paid for it at the list building stage and you're paying for it on the table as well. And it's too much a lot of the time.
There are units in the book, and I think Damnation is a good example. And I think someone had that idea, and as soon as everyone hears it, they're like, that's amazing. That's so cool. Because of course they should turn into Wretched Ones, because that's the whole point. That's the whole progression that they're headed down. But it's things like that and like the Hellmaw. And it's like, the Hellmaw is an amazing idea. You can open portals on the board, and your little slow movement blocks of infantry can pop out the other side. That's awesome. And this is something that's supposed to offset the whole lack of special deployment for a lot of units in the book. So I think the Hellmaw has a lot of potential, and I really like it as a concept. Unfortunately, the Hellmaw is fucking dog shit.
Yeah. So
it's a monster that's also a construct that's shit in combat that has to be babysat because it will fall over to a fucking stiff breeze.
So the Hellmaw earned itself its own position in my bad 5. Because, like you, I think it's a very cool idea. The portal aspect is terrifying. Like, I remember the first time we played, and you were telling me the Hellmaw rules. I had my VC, and I'm like, fuck, he's going to get behind me. It's going to be like madness. I'm going to have chosen in the back of my zombie bunkers and stuff. This is not going to end well. And then we started playing, and you were like, I'll put a thing there, and I was like, right, so what happens if I put a dog unit on it? Oh, I can't spawn. Oh, okay, so I'll put my dog unit on that then. Okay, cool. So I've just invested 300, 400 points in this. I'm not using it.
Once you know the tricks around the Hellmaw, I think the Hellmaw's a bit of a gimmick.
Yeah. If
you're very good at deployment and positioning, you can basically mitigate the Hellmaw. So it's a really cool idea. They just have to improve the rules a little bit.
Yeah.
You can only open portals within 24 inches of it.
And line of sight, which is big.
And line of sight. But you can't hide it. It has to be out front. They have taken it down in price a bit, so it is a little bit more reasonable. But they need to either make it better in combat. Personally, I would prefer it if the Hellmaw was just a monster. I think that would be cooler. I think that speaks to the whole Hellish Beasts, Legendary Beasts aspect of the book.
Well, the Hellmaw would be a monster, but it still does the portal thing. If it was a decent monster and still had that ability, I think they would that would be so expensive. They would price you out. I think it's got to choose what it wants to be, and I think it falls in the same character. There's a lot of units in the game that are like this, where it's got a foot in 2 camps, and because of that, it's priced difficultly, and it ends up not being very good in either of the aspects that it's meant to be. I think
it's beyond price. It's also design.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. I just feel that if it was a monster, like they'll price it out, and that would just be no one will take it again.
I think you could make this 500 points. If it was a monster that could hold its own in combat for at least a couple of turns, I think more people would use it, even if it was a little bit more expensive, because it would offset one of the major problems it's got. So either make it better, and if you have to bump it up a little bit, okay, or you've got to improve the rule set a little bit. Like even you say, like, just take away the line of sight thing, make it like an anvil or something. They can just hide at the back of the table, and they can just open portals and things. Because you're still limited to opening one portal or closing one portal per turn. So even if you bring the 2 tokens, you've got to bring the 2 tokens if you want to use it early game. Otherwise, you're looking at turn 3 and 4 before you've got enough things open that you can actually start using it effectively.
Yeah.
So I think the Hellmaw's a great idea. I really like the concept of it, but I think they have to either with the design of it or the price.
Yeah, I would agree.
Interestingly, there's a guy going to Bristol and he's bringing 2 of them.
So this is the only thing that I could think of. But again, you have to build a list around them. You take 2 of them, and basically you play for the portals. But I still feel that's too gimmicky and not effective enough on the table. I just don't see how it would work.
The only other negative, just really quickly, is, and this is a really quick thing, is just the fact that the book is generally one-dimensional.
Yeah, okay.
It's just a little bit boring, I think. There are cool ideas in the book. They just have to get that last 40%, and then the book will be fine.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to sum it up. It feels like they've lost a lot more than they've gained between 1.3 and now, in terms of list building and general just the flavour of the army. I think the fluff is really, really good. I really enjoyed reading the fluff. I love the 7 gods and the new Path of the Fallen and stuff. That was really cool ideas, really liked it, but it just hasn't translated onto the table, and that's frustrating.
It being the first book,
there's obviously going to be teething problems.
It was a bit of a learning curve,
yeah.
And I think originally they were trying to stick too rigidly to the army strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
We've mentioned Dan talking in the Warrior Forums. He said recently that that's been scrapped.
Yes.
Supposedly. So for the new books, I don't think that's something people have to worry about.
There's a new system that's going to be coming into play, which I don't know a lot about, but I just know that it's meant to be replacing the army strengths and weaknesses, because basically they've just proved so difficult to implement. The
general concept around having books that specialise in certain things, obviously that's not going away, but as a framework, I think they're removing it because they're finding it too difficult to explain to people what it actually is, which is kind of hurting people's expectations of books and things. So I think, I think that is going away. So probably whatever the new book's going to be, now that Demons is done, or the first iteration of it's done. Whatever they're going on to from after that, I think that's not something people need to worry about.
So the only other negative thing, we've kind of crisscrossed. So my 5 negatives were the pricing issue, particularly favours. Yeah. The Feldrick Ancestor, I don't understand what that unit is. The special rule is bad enough. I don't understand why you're paying that points for it. I know some people are taking it. I don't understand you. The Helmaw, as we've just discussed. The kind of the flavour aspect that just nothing in the book really screams take me, which is a shame because the fluff's so good. Like, I, in particular, fucking love the Sloth fluff. Sloth are terrifying. They're so cool. I love all the kind of aspects of that they talk about in the full army book. That would make for some amazing army, modelling opportunities. And I know that Casimir from Ammertime is building a Sloth kind of themed warriors list. I think that's going to just look absolutely fantastic. But the issue is, again, it just doesn't translate onto the table. The other negative thing, the last thing, and I think this is potentially would have the biggest impact on the book, and it's the easiest to fix. And it's to do with chaff and chaff clearing. So, apart from flayers and barbarians with thrown weapons, which are too expensive to take, so you might as well just delete them. You've got no other way to clear chaff apart from magic. But you do not have access to the best lore for that, which is pyro.
There are pages and pages on the forums about people asking for pyro.
I think if warriors got pyro, it would instantly shoot up in power level.
What they've said is they think it would be too much of a crutch for the army, which you can take or leave it, but that's one of the reasonings.
I totally disagree.
Every element of every army book is there to complement the feel of the book and what it can and what it can't do. So every book should be able to clear chaff. They should just be able to do it in different ways. So if you're like an elf-based faction, you should be shit hot at using a bow.
Even from the other angle, so like vampire counts have no way to clear chaff, apart from the altars that do the aura and magic missiles.
Instead, well, you got the screams and the sweeping attacks.
Reaps and stuff, yeah. Yeah, sorry, I forgot about them. So you could use them. But again, it's easy to chaff. I mean,
it's not a gun line.
No, I mean, even like the reaping and stuff, like, you chaff, I reap you, you're still getting your turn of chaffing.
Yeah.
Like, the chaff is still accomplished what it's there to do. So they don't really have many ways to deal with chaff, but what they do have is lots of chaff of their own.
Yeah.
So they can out-chaff you in that, so that's how they get around it. For warriors, you're a combat army that cannot dictate combats, because your own chaff is pretty poor. I know I've just said the dogs are good, but...
Dogs are good, but
they're not...
They're basically there as redirectors.
Yeah, they're not good chaff compared to stuff like eagles or giant bats or, some of the...
swarms or something.
Yeah, exactly. So you're a combat army that can't dictate combat, and you're slow, and I think that's why we've seen so many of the mounted chaos lists. I did it again. Warriors lists. It's because it kind of gets round that a little bit, but even still, like, I don't think that's a crutch to ask for something to let you play the game.
No, and again, this is a sort of less salty version of the conversation I had in the Ammertime podcast about why the Coatl doesn't get cosmology or whatever it is. But like, if you read the fluff around like Pyro, I don't know why Warriors don't have that.
No, I mean, it would actually make more sense to me that they didn't have access to Evocation, but they had access to Pyro. I mean, I know that would be very controversial in the Warrior form, because I know that a lot of Warriors players love Evo, quite rightly. It's definitely second best lore in the game. But it just feels like, and I know this isn't the case because it's way too cynical to be the case, but it feels like they've cherry-picked elements of the fluff and kind of implemented them, and other bits they've kind of chosen not to, because it's, they can't really make it work. And I think the end product is a reflection of that. That's maybe too cynical, though.
I've made the case before in the forums for Pyro, based on we're supposed to be good at large damage and spells, that is the best lore for damage spells, and yet we don't have it. It seems a bit of a contradiction. It would be super useful in the game, considering our weaknesses elsewhere, so it would be a nice complement from that perspective. And I want to say it's a lore that we had in the past. I mean, the game's gone through so many iterations, so I don't think it would be, like, unheard of. So even from, like, a legacy standpoint, it makes sense.
I just feel like if they got that, that would make such an impact on the army.
Like you say about VC, I mean, even having, like, another chaff option would be nice. If I had a wish list, that would be on it. A piece of flying chaff, please.
I mean, flying chaff is the best chaff. Let's be serious.
being able to hide it, stick it behind something, you just deploy it as and when you need it.
Yeah.
It's so frustrating.
I mean, you do have like cavalry with the flares. The issue with the flares is that they basically do the exact same job as dogs. Yeah, they've got light troops, so they're a bit more maneuverable and they're faster. But they do exactly the same job, but they're more expensive. And they don't really add anything else. Like, you want to give them bows so they can clear chaff, but then they're going to be hitting on 5s, 6s all the time. It just... I know this is probably very unhelpful to all the design guys who've basically just sat and listened to 2 hours of us moaning, but...
You gotta take the bad with the good.
I mean, even the list that we're seeing at tournaments, I mean, there's 9 Warriors lists going to Bristol this weekend. That is... That's massive.
That's the most. That's the highest...
The highest army,
choice of faction.
But if you look at the list, they're basically the same. They're different variations of the same list, apart from the Helmwall one.
So you've got people like Tanka, they've got their own style, they bring like the multiple min units.
Yeah.
Chariots, Forsaken Ones, Chosen Knights. That's basically it.
Yeah.
Maybe some people prefer Feldraks, they bring them instead of the Knights. Certainly in the UK, maybe in other countries the meta's different, and the choices. Apparently, like, that's something that Crocs, who's part of the army design team, was talking about recently, is obviously they're in the position where they're looking at choices like across different countries. So obviously we're only really seeing what's going on here, but apparently like the list choices are very different in different countries. But I would say it's still a very limited array of units that are being selected.
Okay. I think we can probably leave it there. I think we've got the salt out. I got really into that there. I got very negative very quickly. I don't know where that came from. I was trying to stay very objective.
You've been listening to me for too long. But this is it, right? See, like, when we play, do you find this as a 9th Age player? You'll be talking to someone, and you're playing an army that isn't your own, so you'll be asking questions about units. I find when I tell people rules and prices around my stuff, there's a lot of surprise in people that don't play it. Because they're surprised at either how expensive something is for what it actually does, or they're to fuck the warrior player over. And it's like, oh yeah, you get +1 hit me because I'm rap. And they're like, oh great, cool.
Yeah. I'm not scared of warriors. And like, I've played warriors at ETC, I've played warriors in tournaments, obviously playing you. Just, as an army, I am not scared of warriors. Because they're so predictable. Like, oh, you've got that. How
scary do you think as a faction are they in close combat? Because this is the thing we're supposed to be good at.
So,
or do you just think, I've got stuff to deal with it?
I play 2 armies that are not particularly good at close combat, so if you get in to me, it's bad. But you're moving at me at like 8 inches a turn. I can chaff you, I can avoid a unit that I'm really scared about, I can combo charge another unit to get points. And there's not a lot you can do about it because your chaff is shit. I'm just not... I mean, the scariest thing in the warrior book is the irredeemable units, because you can't get rid of them. And something like a wretched 1 block against VC, that potentially can just walk through your army, because there's not a lot in the VC book that can actually stand up to it and fight it, and because it's random move, you can't chaff it and things like that. So the warrior book, for me, and I don't know how much of this is just because we have our own interpretation of it, and I'm sure there's people that disagree, I think it's definitely one of the weakest, if not the weakest book. Okay.
From what I've read on the Warrior Forum, the current interpretation of where the guys involved in the book, where they think it is, they are in the impression that it's mid-tier. Like, it's a solid book, but it's not top, but it's not weakest either, which I don't agree with.
I mean, I think now we're at this, like, I really like the stage we're at just now, where all the books are kind of on par.
Oh, it's not what it used to be. I think as a whole they've done a really good job in balancing all the armies.
Yeah, the gap is very small between them. I think you definitely still have a handful that are slightly above the rest. Warriors have got to be on the lower end of the spectrum.
I've been playing 9th, or I've been following 9th since 2016. I've only ever played Warriors. Every game I've ever played, I played this one army. So I've played it through various iterations. I don't feel the book is at its strongest just now. I think it was stronger than 1.3. When 2.0 came out originally, I think the book was blander. I think they've improved it from a fluff perspective. They've introduced rules which reflect the fluff more so. So I think they've improved it from that standpoint.
Yeah.
But I think the book was stronger when it came out originally in 2.0. For all that it was more boring to play then, I think it was stronger. To me, the book still feels like it's a work in progress. More so now than it used to be. And I would say it's not mid-tier. So I would say it's almost mid, but it would be bottom of that cluster of armies.
Yeah.
That's where I would put it.
I would agree.
I think if the points come down, they take away some of this negative stuff, the book is already 10 times better.
Yep.
So I don't think it's a huge mountain to climb. I think they just need to get their shit in order and decide this is the direction we're going. We're going to tweak this, this, and this, and we're going to make it a more cohesive book. We're going to try and get more choices to be more playable.
I mean, even stuff like, I saw you were on, you had a discussion on the forum about barbarians introducing like a totem system for them, where you choose like the animal totem and it gives you, does something akin to the Saurus totem system.
Yeah.
I think it just needs more stuff like that, just more fun stuff.
I think that idea that I had was probably, it was too clunky. Like it's a lot of rules for a handful of units.
But then you can just slim it down, so you've got 4 animal totems, so Crow lets you ambush, but the max squad size is 15.
Yeah.
I don't know, fucking Bear gives you +1 strength in the first round of combat. Like, obviously that's insane on barbarians, that would not be a rule. But, just something like nice, simple like that.
That was basically it. It was like, Bear was like it would be like a glass cannon unit. You just give them like battle focus and stuff. The interesting thing with that though was, it would not only dictate the special rules, the totem would dictate the unit size and the weapon choice.
I think it gets too restrictive.
Yeah, it's very prescriptive.
Yeah.
It's not that customizable, but it basically frames the barbarians in multiple roles that they don't do just now, that we don't have elsewhere in the book. I think they're the kind of conversations that help the rules team get the units to where they need to be, because that's what people want to use the unit for.
Yeah.
So barbarians should offer something different to warriors. What do warriors not do? Right? Warriors can't have special deployment. They're not very maneuverable. They grind very well, but they don't do burst damage, right? Okay, these are all things we can get barbarians to do. So it was basically a way to try and push it towards there.
Yeah.
And maybe it'll happen. Maybe they just need a very simple rule that applies to them all, and that'll be enough. Like they get battle focus on the charge or something like that, or fuck knows.
Fuck, anything's better than Battle Fever. That's fucking stupid.
Yeah, Battle Fever, it's a fucking waste of ink. I mean, if they're worried about fucking book complexity, take that out. Because that's like taking up space that we don't need.
Yeah, I spent 5 seconds reading it that I'm never going to get back.
Yeah. So I think the book's almost there, but I hope that they don't get to the point where they're like, we've been working on it too long, we need to call it a day. Because I think that will definitely hurt the book, and that will definitely turn people off. There's a lot of people in the forums that they want all these changes to be done. They just want to get on with it. But there's a kind of sad tone about that, because they're kind of like, look, 50% of the book is fine. Let's just call it a day. I just want to move on. Because they're scared that trying to fix the other 50%, the 50% that they like is fucked. Like, that's where people are with this book. So it is very divisive. Like, a lot of people do not like this book. They're not satisfied.
They've done so much right. It just feels like they've fallen at the last hurdle.
Yeah.
And it's not hard. I'm saying it's not hard because I'm not having to do it, and I totally take my hat off to the guys that do it, because it's not an easy gig to get, and all they get is criticised, and can imagine that they get very frustrated at it. But come on, guys, Battle Fever, really? Like, that's just indicative of so many things in the book. And when you look to like the ETC lists from this year, right, they were all again basically the same stuff. Lots of chosen knights, heralds. Min units of warriors and stuff. That's not the army book. That's 5 units in the army book that people were just taking in different combinations. That's not like, because I've seen it as well that warriors are still getting taken to tournaments and stuff. They're not. There's 5 units in the book that are getting taken to tournaments.
It's a big distinction to make, that it's not like a book like VC that everything is bringable. Like, the internal balance of that book is where every book should probably be.
I've said this so many times. The VC book should be the model book. It's just,
we're rooting for the book. We want the book to be very good. So hopefully in the next few months, you start seeing some progress. For the sake of the other 14 books.
So people need to kind of move on and get it done. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I think they have learned a lot. I think the Demon Legion book that just came out has been released with much
head and shoulders above what Warriors
much better reception. I mean, there's always going to be people that don't like it, and that's okay. Can't please everybody, but loads of people have been talking about that book and how flavourful it is and how much they like the options and the customization that you've got and how it reflects the fluff. Like, there's so much good things going for that book that even if there are problems with it, and there will be, it doesn't matter because there's so much other positive stuff around it that it makes it acceptable.
I do think that the Warriors book was a victim of the circumstances when it was done. And that it was the first one, but also because the way that the teams had decided to approach the Army books ended up not being the right way to do it. And things like, you'll hear the term complexity budget fired about the forums and stuff. That, again, that was a product of its time when they were making these. Like, they don't adhere to that now. I mean, people talk about complexity and stuff, and obviously you don't want overcomplicated units and rules, but complexity budget as it was when this book was made doesn't exist anymore. As you can see in the Demon Legions book, where you've got all those manifestations and no one knows what the fuck they're doing.
Well, see, this is it, right? I mean, the complexity budget argument, I don't think anyone bought, because we just talked about the VC book. How many pages of special rules has VC got?
Oh, lots.
How much has Vermin Swarm got? Fucking loads.
Even more. Mate,
it's fine.
Dwarves have got their own items.
Well, this is it. Like, people are okay with that level of complexity. This is a game that you're kind of signing up for that.
Yeah.
And I know they're trying to appeal to new players and stuff, but that's why we've got, like, the fucking quick starter rule set.
Yeah, like the
rule book
like
of this game is fucking bananas. That's where the complexity lies, not in the army books. So I really hope they ditch that, because it's horrendous.
I mean, there has been massive changes in the design teams themselves and the way that they're meant to approach stuff. Like, very recently, there's big changes. So I think if we're going to see changes to the Warriors book, it will be this year.
I think there are changes coming that we'll see in the next couple of months.
Yeah.
I would say the last iteration of the book, the design changes have been, for the most part, improvements. The points are still bullshit. For some reason, things got more expensive. I don't know why they got more expensive. So they just need to, like, crack the design and then, like, try and let's settle on some sensible points for units. Because they're always going to be tweaking points for things. That's fine. We can do that while they work on whatever the next book's going to be.
Yeah. So before we wrap up then, so we're kind of thinking Warriors Bomb. We've both had the opportunity to play quite a lot of games over Christmas and January.
Yeah.
Gold Edition. Who's your top three armies just now?
I would still rate Vampires, just because...
Because I play them. It's okay. You can say it.
They've got such good variety, and it's all good. It doesn't matter what bloodline you take. It's a cool list, and it's competitive, and there's different things there.
Yeah.
We were talking about UD earlier. No one plays UD in our group, so I'm kind of relying on hearsay a wee bit, but by all accounts, UD are so strong. And I think they kind of went under the radar a little bit for a while, and I think now it's like, oh no, UD are legit. If I was putting them aside, because I say I don't actually play against them, I think Saurian Ancients are still very strong.
I could hear Martin saying fuck off.
He's not gonna talk up his own book. I think there's other books that are just like extremely solid, like Dwarves. I don't know if I'd say they're top, but I'd say they're definitely a strong book. Orcs and Goblins, I think, are very good.
Yeah, I would say they're high mid-tier. I think they're pretty decent there. Beast
Herds, I really like Beast Herds. I think they're very good. I don't think they're as good as they used to be.
Well, they used to be fucking ogres, bent, didn't they? So
I think are still very good. But I'd say they're strong mid to upper mid.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what else. Empire, I'd say Empire upper mid.
Yeah, Empire solid just now.
I hate playing against Vermin Swarm.
They're a hard counter to your army.
They're definitely upper mids, if not higher.
See, they would make my top three. So my top three would be, in no particular order, I would say Vermin, Undying Dynasties, Vampires. I think it's hard to say where demons are going to fall, but I think they're going to be upper. I think they're going to be pushing into that. By reading the book, obviously, reading the book and actually how it translates in the table are two different things. And they're going to be there. I think basically because UD are just solid. They're just a really strong book. It's the same with Vampires. Vampires are just, it's just a good book. And both of them ignore some of the most important rules in the game, like panic, morale, break tests.
Dying.
Exactly. the ability to ignore that aspect of the game allows you to plan for eventualities so much easier than I failed a 9 rerollable and now my battle line's crumbling. Like, it should never be a surprise if you lose a vampire unit, you know? Really. You should have kind of expected it. It just makes game management a lot easier. And Vermin, I think, are going to be the new spice coming into the new edition. Their book is just fucking mental. I don't know how it's... there's some stuff in that book that is ridiculous. I don't know how it's got into this form. But I think they're going to take names, I think, this coming tournament season.
So that's our top 3, and we'd probably say that most of the books are solid middle.
Yeah.
And then you've really only got a few that are bottom. So I think we both agreed that Warriors and Sylvan Elves are probably down at the bottom.
Yeah, but I think there's even that. I think there's a big gap between Warriors and Sylvan Elves, I would say. I think Sylvan Elves have struggled to adapt. Their book is actually similar to Warriors in that it's so restrictive in certain aspects.
The tree builds seem to have kind of survived a little bit better.
The tree builds are still solid, but that's the same as the Chosen Light spam. Like, again, you're picking 5
like,
units and you build your army.
Yeah, it's 3 units of the book that are good.
Exactly. I think they're lower tier. I don't think they're quite as bad as certain Sylvan Elf players make out, but I think they're definitely on the lower end of the spectrum. I think the rest are kind of even. I wouldn't want to pick out any other book as a kind of a lower...
No, like we said, I think by and large the project's done a really good job in balancing.
That's a lovely note to end on.
Yeah.
So, thank you everyone if you've stuck around this long.
As I said at the beginning, I kind of alluded to it, I was a bit worried about doing this because I'm very aware that I've got very strong opinions on the Warrior book, and a lot of them are negative. But you got to take the bad with the good.
Yeah.
You got to talk about these things. Can't all be rainbows and
you know what?
bullshit.
If you disagree with us or agree with us, let us know. Comment on the forum, send us an email.
Don't disagree too fervently or angrily via email because we won't read them.
I'll still read them. Andrew
can read them and give me the nice version. He'd be like, they thought it was a good episode, but they didn't quite agree with all your points. I'm like, right, okay, that's fine, I can handle that.
I've never listened before, but you guys don't know what you're talking about. Well, if you had listened before, you would have figured that out way earlier.
Yeah, I mean, like, fucking newsflash. Like, what did you expect? Ain't no professionals.
It's not for lack of trying that we don't know what we're talking about. Before we sign off, just a couple of shout-outs. If you do want to get in contact with us, you can drop us an email at scottishwildlands@gmail.com. You can grab us on Twitter at Scottish9page. You can grab us on the forum. Paul is Space Goblin, I am Lost Cause. We have the Mad Git thread if you want to post any questions or comments on there. And the last thing I need to do is give a shout out to the Scottish Championships, which are happening on the 23rd and 24th of March.
Yeah.
At Common Ground Games. We have 35 tickets sold. That means we've only got 5 tickets left. What the fuck are you waiting for? Buy a ticket.
I know, right? Everyone that's just listened to this fucking gripe can come up and be like, Paul, you're talking shit.
Exactly. You can actually meet us face to face and tell us we're talking shit.
You can bring a Warriors list and you can be like, this is how you fucking play the book.
And see, when you win Best in Race Warriors, you can actually look Paul in the eye as you take the medal and mouth to him, fucking jabroni. Just watch him cry as you take that medal.
I'm totally okay with that. Fuck, I'm going to Bristol like tomorrow, and there's like other Warriors players. I've got no preconceptions about winning Best in Race.
So yeah, there's 5 tickets left. We've very generously been sponsored by Deep Cut Studios, Cromlech, and Mears Miniatures. So the sponsorship for the event is fucking insane. There's such good prizes on go.
Maybe some nice, tasty prizes.
So get yourself involved. There will be Best in Race awards as well.
Nice.
So I think it'll be good. It'll be good.
What are you guys doing for trophies?
We have been in contact with Gary from Dark Fantastic again. So if you saw any of our trophies from last year, it's the same guy that's doing them, and this year he's doing our Best in Race medals as well. So,
oh really?
Yeah. It's going to be swanky.
They were very cool, the last ones.
And of course, the events and sponsorship of the Scottish ETC team. So any money that we do make will go towards them. So if you want to help us out as well, buy a ticket, because we need to get to Zagreb's.
Yeah.
Not Zagreb's. That's the wrong place. If we go to Zagreb, we're in the wrong country. We're going to
every £5 of your ticket will go towards helping Paul learn how to fucking play his book.
Yeah, Paul needs to buy a new army now. Right, so that's us. Hope you've enjoyed. Any last words,
Yeah.
Paul?
We should also say that Bristol is soon upon us.
Yes.
There's going to be 5 of us travelling down from the club, which is pretty
Yep.
good. We're going to enjoy it. I'm not going to say if you see us there, come say hi, because this isn't going to be released in time. So
No,
what I will
sir.
say is a preemptive, it was nice to meet you guys. And also, we will be doing a wrap-up of Bristol after the event.
Yeah, that's going to be the next episode.
Yeah, so we'll come back and tell you how it all went down. And maybe a Warriors player will win it. It's going to be 9 of us.
Yeah, statistically, you're probably in for a good shout. But
Statistically, we should. We've got the best chance, just numerically. Tank is going. Tank is normally pretty good.
yeah, Tank is your best hope, probably, I'd say.
I know. Oh, dude, if I get best in race, it's a good potential win.
Scenes. You'll
It's gonna
hear
be
me
amazing.
shouting from here.
I mean, not that this is possible, but I mean, if I come last and also somehow manage to win best in race, that'll be the best thing ever. We're playing the Vale Renegades.
Yeah.
Grudge them round 1. Oh, maybe I should bring this out on the show. I got an email from Rob. That's who I'm playing game 1.
Rob
from
Cousins.
the Renegades. And he mentioned that he's looking forward to meeting the second half of the Dynamic Duo.
Oh, that's us.
And that he says that I'm a bit chirpier because apparently you were sulking the whole time at mids.
I was sulking.
That's what he said. So if you've got a message for Rob, this is the time.
Fuck you, Rob.
I'll pass that on to him when I see him. I just said fuck you, by the way.
Nah, I like Rob a lot.
Yeah, the Vale guys are cool. That'll be fun.
Awesome, we'll have fun, and we'll hear all about it on the next episode.
Yeah, take it easy, guys, and we'll see you then.
See you then.